You have just tuned in for the latest episode of Stranger Than Fiction. Joining me as today's very special guest is Mark Passio. He is a freedom activist, an anarchist, a teacher of natural law, and so much more. But before we get into it, if this just happens to be your first time ever watching any of my videos, I do encourage you to explore my channel. Make sure you're subscribed, smash that like button, and hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date with my videos as they come out. Be sure to check out my Patreon channel where I post up exclusive content, early access to videos. I also do monthly giveaways for patrons only, and it's a way to support the channel directly. Be sure to follow me on Library, where I post up extra videos. Check out my audio podcast, Rice Radio, and that is hosted on Anchor.fm. It's available on every major podcasting platform at Rice Radio, and new episodes are coming, so stay tuned. In case you haven't heard, I've recently partnered up with Money Metals Exchange. You can get a free half ounce of silver if you're a first-time buyer at moneymetals.com. You purchase $100 or more and you use the promo code RICE. You'll get a free half ounce of silver, and it's an additional way to support the channel as well. I'm going to have links down below for everything I just mentioned, as well as everything we talk about on today's show. All right, ladies and gentlemen, joining me on today's show is somebody who I have learned a lot from over the past few years. This is Mark Passio. He is not only a musician, an anarchist, a teacher of natural law, and you got a crazy resume, man. Independent researcher, public speaker, presenter, radio talk show host, conference organizer, freedom activist from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He's assembled a vast amount of research in the areas of metaphysics, occultism, spirituality, symbology, and conscious studies. He's also started What on Earth is Happening back in 2007, and he's been doing some intensive live seminars over the years, which I've been learning from, and I have the honor and privilege of having Mark Passio on the show. Mark, thanks for accepting my invitation.
Thanks so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, I mean, honestly, dude, I'm really looking forward to this conversation. And I know we've talked a little bit beforehand, and this will be the beginning of many conversations. But with this one, before we get into talking about the main topics I wanted to get into, which was anarchy and natural law, I'd like to get a little background on you. Like, who is Mark Passio, and how did you ultimately want to get involved in sharing this information and knowledge with the world?
Well, what happened is I got a little bit of a peek behind the ostensible corridors of power, and saw what really ran the show behind the scene aspect of power in our world. When I was younger, I became very disillusioned with organized religion, and looked at my entire background and culture as something that had sort of lied to me or given me bad information. And I came from basically a background that didn't really question my family background. My family's a traditional South Philadelphia Roman Catholic family. They didn't really question the status quo very much, just accepted teachings that were handed down to them from organized religion and passed them along to the next generation. So I became really disillusioned when my questions that I had about what's really going on in society wasn't really answered. I looked at religion as a fraud and something to rebel against. Channeled a lot of hatred toward that, and was looking for the exact opposite of religion, of organized religion. And so I became interested in the occult and gravitated toward, what I now refer to as dark occultism, and what is certainly includes Satanism. I was attracted to LaVeyan Satanism in my youth, and studied the writings of Anton LaVey, became involved with the Church of Satan. Later on, LaVey actually discovered some of my writings and music that I had put out, through the underground music circuit, which I guess that, Satanists within the Church of Satan sort of monitor and look for people who are pumping that ideology out. And he made me an offer to actually become a priest in the Church of Satan, which I accepted. And he wanted me to head a grotto in Philadelphia, which I declined that offer because I looked at Satanism at that time as a very personal, occult science and work to become involved in as an individual, but I wasn't really into group dynamics too much even then. So I said that I would accept the priesthood, but I did not want to head a grotto, which is what they call their covens. And so I maintained sort of peripheral involvement, but was invited to different groupings of, organized groupings of Satanists in my tri-state area. Some of which were hosted by Church of Satan members, some of which were not Church of Satan members who hosted them, but what I would just call Satanists who were involved at other levels of the worldwide network and hierarchy of dark occultism. And in attending those meetings and rituals, I realized that these were not individual occultists who were just looking to, understand, human psychology and the deep aspects of the occult workings of the human mind so that they could just get an advantage in their own personal lives. But they were an eclectic variety of people from every social institution in our world, all working together toward a common goal. And that common goal was to increase the collective power of their group at the expense of everyone else's rights and freedoms. When I recognized that organized worldwide satanic network / hierarchy was all about slavery, it was all about human slavery, it was all about controlling the masses of people and basically creating a master class and a slave class, which is really, what they're doing through politics and government. And military and police, etc. And they are really the forces behind those structures. My conscience wouldn't allow me to continue. That's not what I signed up for. I signed up, sort of to learn about the inner workings of the human psyche to gain a leg up on my fellow man, if you want to word it that way. Yeah. And, when I realized this was really the agenda driving it was human slavery, then I said, I'm not staying involved in this. And when I expressed my concerns about, my moral concerns regarding what their goals were, they were completely unconcerned. It wasn't like people think, oh, you get involved at any level of this and it's like you're in it for life. It doesn't work that way. It's not like someone who already has very high level involvement in crimes and death and right. is intimately involved in all of their dealings and doings. I was not involved at that level. I was involved in what I admittedly refer to as the Boy Scout level of Satanism and dark occultism. So at that level, they're vetting you and seeing how psychopathic you are and how much they could work with you and groom you. I call it a psychological vetting and filtration system at that low level. And they're looking to groom you up into the ranks and the hierarchy. And they liked my communication skills. Obviously, they thought I was intelligent enough to work with them because they are a very intellectually advanced group of people with a lot of drive and willpower and all kinds of, dynamics and characteristics that make them very successful at what they do, at manipulating the masses of people. And they certainly exercise their willpower to gain the power that they have in the world and to keep it. And that's why they're beating us. They're very together. They're very on the same page. And they have the resources at their disposal and the willpower to continue with their agenda and drive it forward. And the freedom movement is sort of scattered and not on the same page, especially when it comes to rights and morality and what real freedom is and how we achieve it. And, basically to finish the story, after I expressed my concern and didn't want to be involved anymore, they just said, well, don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out, and go and do your worst trying to tell people what you think and what you understand about what we do. You can go and tell them everything that we've told you, and they're not going to accept it from you. They're like, they wouldn't even accept it from us. That's what they told me. They said if we went out to the public and told them everything that we're doing and exactly how we're doing it to the masses of people, the masses are too ignorant to even understand. They wouldn't accept it from us if we told them that they are our chattel slaves, that they're that brainwashed and ignorant. And I can't say that I really disagree with them that much on that point, because I've been doing this now for almost 15 years, and my work is very little recognized, and even in the freedom community, it's something that a lot of people are very loath to hear and accept, because they think that this is some quaint little religious thing that if they don't believe in, doesn't affect them. And they have to understand that the rulers of the world do subscribe to this ancient religion of Satanism, dark Luciferianism, as I refer to it in general, dark occultism. That is their overarching belief system, and you don't need to believe in it or even understand it for it to have an effect on your life, because these people are sick, psychopathic monsters, and they believe firmly in their belief systems and are using it to carry out their agenda for sure.
Yeah, and what you said is like basically what I've realized. It's that cognitive dissonance that people are experiencing, where they realize there's something wrong, but they don't want to admit it because it messes with their belief system, what they know, and it's that old saying that the truth hurts. And I get it. That's why you have like your character. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on his name, but the one who in the Matrix movie decided he wanted to go back into the Matrix.
Yes, Cypher. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, he willingly knew what he was doing and still chose it. So I mean, right. There are those people that exist that I think that are going to be like that, and unfortunately, yeah, we really can't get the attention of everybody, which really sucks. And you mentioned the word occult a lot, and that's one of the things I learned from you is really the true meaning of what words are, because I've always looked at occult as being something dark, sinister, something you would put in the category of like Satanism or Luciferianism, but it just means hidden.
That's it.
And it comes from realize that.
Yeah, it comes from the Latin. The actual root is oculus, which means eye, because occultism is related to what can be seen and not seen. And the adjective occultus that derives from the Latin verb occultare. Occultare means to hide, to conceal, or to keep secret, to keep hidden. And occultus just means hidden or concealed. That's it. So all it means is hidden. It does not mean evil in and of itself. It can take on that connotation depending on how that knowledge is used. It's hidden knowledge. That's all the whole body of occultism is. And it is the knowledge of how the human psyche works and operates, and what is really going on deep inside the psyche of human beings. And it's the knowledge of how the actual laws of the material world, the physical universe operate, and how we can actually probe into the hidden layers of that, into energies that cannot really be truly seen with the eyes or with scientific instrumentation that we currently have. And that is just hidden information. And if other people have that knowledge and information, and they're holding it tight to their chest and they're not giving it out, and they know it very well, and then a whole huge mass of people are completely ignorant of that same information, imagine what kind of a job the people who have that knowledge can do to manipulate and deceive the people who are ignorant of it. It would completely create an imbalanced power differential in the world, and that's really what has happened, and that's how these people deceive and manipulate people and gain the power advantage that they have.
I totally agree. And then, because of the word thing, that's also what led me into really having a true understanding of what anarchy is. And I've been trying to teach a lot about what you've taught me as far as the meaning of the word, where it comes from. And I think this question is much, much more relevant than when I met you in person at Anarchadelphia a little over a year ago, because we've experienced 2020, and we've seen all this social unrest. We've seen the rise of Antifa, and they're putting that in the category of anarchist, and they're calling it anarchy, and they're making it sound like anything that's chaotic and bad, riots, it's anarchy. And somehow the socially norm accepted definition of anarchy is what I just said. Right. But the word itself, when you get into the etymology and you break it down, I want to let the teacher kind of, what is anarchy, and how did it come about?
Them pushing those images and saying that it's anarchy is just a completely incorrect definition of the word. The etymological root of anarchy comes from the Greek language, the ancient Greek prefix an, a or an in the ancient Greek language, just means without or the absence of. And then that's tacked on to the noun archos, archon in Greek, which means ruler or master. And it literally means in the connotation of a ruler over subjects or a master over slaves. It does not mean a master of the arts, a master of a skill. That's not the connotation that archos, archon has in the Greek language. It means literally one who rules someone else, one who is the master over another, meaning that they own them, that they are their, they are the master and they own a slave. So if we put those two root words together, anarchos or anarchon means without a ruler, without a master, or in other words, not a slave. That is all anarchy means. Anarchy means the absence of a master-slave relationship. So if you ask somebody, are you someone's rightful slave? Of course, almost 100% of people will be like, of course I'm no one's rightful slave. Well, then by definition, you're literally an anarchist if you don't believe anyone else has the right to rule or own you, that they don't have actual legitimate moral authority over you. And that's the whole concept, is that people have bought into a religious belief system that is false, which is the belief in rulership, the belief in authority, which never has been moral and never can be moral because it's based in violence. It's based in control over someone else that no one has the legitimate right to do, to the legitimate right to rule somebody. That's what the belief in authority is. And anybody who believes in that is actually a religious subscriber. They are someone who has bought into a false religious belief system. That is what authority actually is.
No, I totally agree. And I mean, now if you're someone who lives in the UK and you have a monarch, you have a queen, or if you have a king, therefore you are part of you are monarchist because you have a ruler. That's the situation you were born in. Here in the United States, we don't have said rulers, so everybody in theory would be an anarchist. So that's why, I mean, I try to break it down, like I was telling you the other day about just comparing it as the opposite of monarchy and oligarchy, as far as, some people just don't get it and they're feeding into what the media is telling them and what they're being taught in school. Because I used to think the word anarchy had to do with chaos, back when I used to think like the arrows of chaos were really cool, and I was in my younger punk days when I was a little bit more ruthless than I am today, since I've grown up.
That is what the social engineers and the master manipulators try to do, to obfuscate the meaning of words, the very definitions of words they want to change, and tell people that anarchy means chaos, but just think of it like this, since you brought up monarchy and a monarch, a king or a queen. If people never usually even think about it like this, was the concept of rulership of a king ever moral? Was that something that was ever morally legitimate? Did the king actually possess the right to say, I am the ruler or owner of all my subjects, and they must do what I decree? Whatever I say is the law, and anyone else must obey, or I will send my henchmen to perform abject violence upon them unless they conform to my will? Was that ever moral? Has there ever been a legitimate king? Has there ever been a legitimate queen? And I mean, like, in the sense of being an external ruler over other people. Okay, we could talk about the word sovereign and what sovereignty actually is to the individual, but has there ever been legitimate rulership vested in a king or a queen over a whole bunch of people as their subjects? Was that ever moral? Could that ever be moral? And of course, anybody with a legitimately functioning mind could see that that can never be a moral situation. All that is ever backed by violence or the threat of violence, which is called duress. And, we have to reject that notion outright, because any modern political authority all modern governmental authority or governmental structures is the diffusion of that power, which was once vested in one individual as a king or a queen, into an oligarchical group of a few individuals collectively, when we take it, as far as the ratio of amount of people who are the ruling class, the government, versus the slave class, the people who must obey their dictates called laws. It's a very tiny percentage. It's an oligarchical few. So all that has changed from the ancient world of rulership of kings and queens and dynasties and kingships, etc., to the modern day of governments and then their people who must obey their dictates called laws. The only thing that has changed is the amount of people that authority is vested in. It used to be invested in one individual. Now it's invested in an oligarchical few comparatively. That's
Right.
the only thing that has changed.
No, I agree. We haven't really advanced much as a species too much as far as governance models. It seems like we may have been making some headway, and then along the way that got screwed up, and we got put back into this occult and a commerce system. I mean, I've been trying to. You mentioned the word sovereign, which we'll get into, but because that was one of the things, like with the natural law, that I wanted to discuss with you.
Sure.
Because the sovereign movement is kind of coming back, and there's a lot of different factions and a lot of different leaders that are kind of, or individuals that I necessarily maybe wouldn't want to be called leaders, but kind of are put in that position, that are saying that this is the way you need to go to free yourself from this system, whether it's changing your political status, there's a lot of different things that I'm gathering from different people. But the word sovereign citizen, I'm starting to learn, is an oxymoron.
Yeah, it's a good avenue of discussion to go down, because it opens up a lot of understanding unto people. So there's the common law movement, there's the sovereign citizen movement, and I don't really subscribe to any of these, because I look to a higher form of law altogether, which we could talk about, which is natural law, or just universal law. It's universal spiritual law, which has nothing to do with humankind whatsoever, except the consequences that we bring upon ourselves, whether we live in harmony with it or whether we go against it. So we could look at the word sovereign or sovereignty. First of all, it comes from the Latin roots. The first part of it, sover, S-O-V-E-R, comes from the Latin root super, S-U-P-E-R. There's no P in classical Latin. It would be the root S-U-B-E-R, S-O-B-E-R, sober, S-U-B-E-R, suber, which means above. Okay. And then the reign, R-E-I-G-N, at the end of sovereign, comes from the word rex, meaning king, and then regnum, meaning rulership, where we get the word reign from, the reign of a king, rulership. Okay. So when we put those two Latin roots together, suber and regnum means above rulership. Once again, the absence of a master, the absence of a king, the absence of a master-slave relationship. Sovereign, super regnum, literally means above someone else's rulership, which literally means that you are not a slave, because you are no one else's rightful a subject or slave. No one can rule you. And this is why kings and queens in the old world were called the sovereigns, because they were considered above anybody else's rule, because they were the rulers.
Okay.
What we really need is the understanding that everyone is a sovereign, and no one can rule anyone else, because we are all gifted with the exact same natural inherent rights, the same exact human rights as everyone else. That brings us to having to understand what is the definition of a human right, which most people cannot give the correct definition of. And yes, there is a correct definition. A right is an action or a behavior that does not initiate harm to another sentient being. If an action is initiation of harm to another sentient being, then that is not a right, it's a wrongdoing, because that action would initiate something that harms or defrauds another being. And you don't have the right to do that. No one does. No group of people can come together that don't have the right to do something and then magically grant or delegate the ability to perform a wrongdoing to someone else. No one has that right to do that behavior, because it's a wrong. It is not a right. And
Right.
this is what we believe government is. We believe that some people can be granted rights that all other people do not have, and we call them government or government agents. And it's a complete religion. That's all it is. It's a false religious belief system that people have been brainwashed and mind controlled into accepting and believing is morally legitimate, when it can never be morally legitimate. So that's sovereignty in general, is that no one can rule you. You are your own being. You own yourself. It's self-rulership, self-ownership, and there's no one above you to rule you.
The reason I believe that all this has happened is just because people have been tricked and deceived, and it's literally consent of the governed, when the governed don't realize that if they don't consent,
Right.
all you have to do is not consent. If everybody was to stand up, I keep trying to tell people, if enough people take a stand, nothing can stand against the people. We can change this world together, united.
Without a doubt, it's a change in mindset. The whole idea that you can give your consent to be ruled or be enslaved. We have to even stop euphemizing it as just being ruled or being governed. It's slavery. That's it. The euphemism has to be dropped, and we have to say it like it is. Government is slavery. It is no different. Kingship was slavery. Rulership was slavery. Rulership and kingship is slavery. Authority is slavery. Claiming authority over someone else is claiming that you're their master and they're your slave. That's all it ever has been. That's all it is now. That's all it ever will be in the future. That we have to stop euphemizing the language and even calling government anything other than what it is. It's a form of slavery. Right now, you could say it's not hard, shackled, ball and chain and whip slavery, but really it's the threat of that. It's the threat of, if you don't do what we say we're going to do, we're going to imprison you or even kill you.
Well, even the monetary system. I mean, that's the debt-based system. I mean, we are complete slaves. That is the biggest tool that they have to keep us trapped.
Debt slavery is a big form of soft form of slavery. Duress. You could say we're not in direct violence, under direct violence, but we're under the continued threat of violence. That is known as duress, saying that if you don't obey my decrees, someone will be sent to take your freedom, your property, or your life. That's called duress, and that's not a moral right to do, to keep someone under duress. We're constantly kept in an immoral state. The people who are doing this and condoning government slavery are totally immoral for doing it or condoning it. So, to go back to the whole idea of the sovereignty, the sovereign citizen movement, the free man on the land movement, the common law movement, this still basically in its idea, in its thought forms, is saying that man has some form of authority that you could be released from if you have the right word play or documents in order. This still is giving authority to someone externally by even acknowledging that their court system has any right to do that or to release you from it. This is why I don't buy into any of those movements. See, my whole work makes the distinction between the actual point of fact, inherent natural world that has nothing to do with constructural ideas of man, of mankind, of human beings, versus the artificial world of thought forms that don't really exist, that don't have a basis inherently in the natural world, which are only things that people believe in their mind that they've then attached themselves to like an identity, and then imbued with some form of artificial life to make it real through their behavior, by doing things in the world based on their belief, based on their constructural ideas. This is still a falsity. It's still an illusion of mind that leads to wrong and immoral behavior. So my whole work is all about making that delineation and distinction between the actual natural world that really does truly exist inherently in nature versus the world of artificial thought forms, false beliefs, religious belief systems. I believe that all of those false ideas and belief systems and false religions need to be destroyed, and that we must bow to the natural, and that we must bow to truth. That is the only thing that anyone must basically accept and take it upon themselves to live in harmony and live in accordance with. When we live in accordance with the true laws of creation, the true spiritual universal laws of objective morality that govern the consequences of the behaviors we choose. That is what natural law is. It is universal, non-man-made, binding, and immutable conditions that exist everywhere, eternally and at all places and times. These are laws which govern the consequences of behaviors that we, as beings that have the capacity to understand the difference between right and wrong behavior, choose for ourselves and enact in the world. And then the universe brings the consequences that we basically enact through our behaviors. We'll bring the consequences down upon ourselves through interaction with these universal karmic laws or universal moral laws. People have called it karma. They've called it consequentialism. They've called it the laws of cause and effect. It's been given many, many names throughout human history. I refer to it as natural law, as many other philosophers have, but it is essentially universal moral law. And it is as binding and real as any other physical law that governs matter in the universe. These are laws which govern behavioral consequence. And all we have to do to recognize their existence and operation in the world is measure the actual effects that we see in the world and look at the behavior that put those effects into place. Were they moral? Or what are we getting? What are we experiencing? Is it good? Is it leading toward more freedom? Is it leading to more order in the world? Or is it chaotic, disorderly, and leading to slavery and suffering? Right? Well, that answer is obvious. So then, were the actions that we put into the world collectively as a species, were they in the aggregate moral, or were they in the aggregate immoral and supporting and condoning immoral behavior? Well, then that answer becomes very obvious and clear. That is what I refer to as the law of freedom. As aggregate morality increases through human behavior, aggregate freedom of humanity increases. As aggregate morality of human beings through their behavior decreases and becomes more and more immoral, humanity becomes more and more enslaved. It's an inescapable natural law of behavioral consequence, and people have yet to learn it. In many other religions, it was called, again, karma. It was called the golden rule. It was called consequentialism. You can give it whatever name you like, but what it is we can choose our behaviors through our free will, but we can never be insulated from the consequences of the behaviors we choose. If we choose either moral behaviors, we get one result, or if we choose immoral behaviors, we get a completely opposite and different result.
Right. No, it's so well said. Yeah, I mean, you kind of covered that in complete depth, and I appreciate you doing that. And when I think about common law, as far as talking to people in these movements, there's nothing that's really written down. So the idea of common law, when people try to define it to me, is what I understand as the definition that I see, like the most recognized definition, which is a system of right or justice held to be common to man or woman, derived from nature rather than the rules of society.
Yes, I refer to this dynamic as natural law, because even you could make the argument or claim that even common law can go into the realm of the jurisdiction of man through the court system, whereas natural law it's literally the creator of the universe's laws, that force, that consciousness, however you want to look at it, that all mind put into effect. So no man or woman, no 3D creature, no group of beings anywhere in the manifest physical universe is that force. No one or no beings collectively created the universe and all of its laws. So unless anyone can claim that they are that force and prove it, okay, they are not the origin of natural law, or what I'm calling universal cosmic spiritual law. That's why I put it above what people call common law, even though in that definition that you just gave, it could be considered the same thing. I'm just making a delineation between what people will refer to as common law through common law courts, etc., versus God's law, the creator of the universe's law, whatever you want to refer to that for. Some people have a problem with the word God. I don't care. I do not have a problem with that word, even though I don't consider myself an adherent of any worldly religion. I just follow the truth wherever it leads. And, I believe in objective morality. I don't believe in it. I know that it exists, and through a process of truth discovery. And, this is the problem, is that people have, all man's law is based upon moral relativism. People have gone down this satanic mindset and path of believing that right and wrong is whatever we make it up to be, depending on our likes, whims, and preferences at any given time, place, a geographic location, or jurisdiction of man. And that's all that is saying that man can usurp the place of the creator of the universe and make up law as to what is right or wrong. Right and wrong are written into the fabric of reality. They are nature forces. That is determined upon whether the behavior that is enacted in the 3D physical world of nature initiates violence, initiates harm upon another sentient being. So that is an objective reality in nature that has nothing to do with the constructs of mankind, as do the laws of man. So I still would consider what people call common law in the realm of the laws of man, because they're saying that it is common to all people. But I still put natural law or God's law or universal law as higher than that, because again, you hear common law referenced as, a common law court system, things like that. It can still be considered under some form of jurisdiction of humanity. So that's why I make the delineation. But some people will equate the two. And basically we're talking about, yes, these things, it's not something that needs to be written anywhere except in the human heart and mind. That's where natural law is written. It is not in legal books. It is not in a court. Right. And think about it. It is that definition of common, right? Because what is the knowledge of the difference between right and wrong that should be in our hearts and minds? That is conscience. That comes from, again, going back to our etymology of words and the origins of the language that we speak. The ancient Latin, con means together or with. The prefix in ancient Latin, con, means together or with, or common to. And then the word science, science, conscience. Science comes from the Latin verb scio, sciere, which means to know or to understand. So when we put them together, it means to know together, to understand together, to have the knowledge together, common sense. That's what conscience of the difference between right and wrong is, common sense.
And it's so simple. It's really so simple. But now let me ask you this, because as an anarchist, I know, I don't think that we're ready to live, the rest of the world is ready to live without a ruler. And we need to evolve as man and woman to a point that we can live under natural law, where we treat people how we want to be treated. Then we wouldn't need all these exterior things. But if we were to tear down the system and enough people take a stand and we make this change, we need solutions that are going to get us through to that evolution as we can make progression. How would you see us doing that? That's where that's where I was kind of looking into the common law thing as kind of an intermediary in between the phases of humanity of evolving.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with progressively going backwards from tyrannical to radical tyrannical situation like we're approaching now, to go back to moving toward a constitutional republic, something that would respect natural law principles, and then eventually dissolve that. But it would be a better progression than the direction we're heading now, which is the deterioration of human freedom and moving into greater levels of tyranny. But I really I don't personally advocate. I don't personally work toward just the creation of institutions that still deal with any type of authority. What I think is the ultimate solution is proper moral education. The only thing that could ever solve this problem is that people, as soon as they are born, begin to be taught by their parents and their culture and their and everybody around them.
That's how it's supposed to be, though, isn't it?
Difference between right and wrong.
That's what we were supposed to do from the get-go. It's what happened? Where did the disconnect happen?
We have become immoral people because we believe in things that are not true. That's it. It's a very, very simple thing. If you believe in something, if you don't strive to learn the truth about what is real versus what is illusionary and what is just a completely messed up idea in the mind that has no bearing on reality or truth or what is good, what is right, then the population becomes increasingly more and more moral because it is acting upon the false. It is acting upon that which is untrue. Truth leads to goodness, leads to freedom, period. That's a universal, inescapable law of how things work in nature. Falsity leads to confusion and a lack of understanding of how things really work, which leads eventually to immorality and slavery. That's it. Until we understand how the principle works, how the actual law of reality works, and if you ask around and you look at the dynamic of human civilization and culture, and you ask, are people ready to accept that mentally, or will they reject that notion mentally? They will murder someone for even suggesting it to them. That's how egoically ignorant the mass body of the human population is, and has been inculcated and brainwashed into complete abject nonsense of the mind. So I don't think it matters to me whether they're ready or not. It still remains the truth. It will never be untrue. It doesn't matter what you think about that dynamic. It is the truth. It will remain the truth eternally, because that is how natural law functions. That is how universal, eternal law, unwavering law of the universe is like a computer program. It's coded into the fabric of reality. It functions like that forever, and it's tough if you don't like it or even understand it. It doesn't care about you. It's not a personal force. It's an impersonal force that is coded into the fabric of creation. And until people get their ego out of the way and understand that that's how it works, they will continue to bring self-inflicted suffering into their lives and everyone else's life around them eternally, until they either accept that and change their mind, and then as a result change their behavior, or go extinct. And that is just how it works. And the universe will say, that is your choice. So choose, and you can go in whatever direction you want. It allows that level of freedom to continue to destroy yourself, or to understand how it works and then turn your path around and go in the direction of order and freedom.
Love it, dude. And I love your intensity, man. That's one of the things, like with your seminars, I definitely encourage people, and I'll have links down below for your website, whatonearthishappening.com, but also you have a 9-hour long seminar on natural law that is just intense. A lot of your live seminars have been really, really educational and very intense, because I can tell you're very passionate about this. And if people are there was a reason why I wanted to bring you on. I'm hoping that people that are following the freedom movement, the sovereign movement, are taking what you're saying to heart. And because there's a lot of truths that people can bring into the equation, and there's ways that we can move forward, but the way that we learn and the way that we grow is to challenge ourselves and to challenge our beliefs, our thoughts, and what we know.
Absolutely.
And I think that's one of the most beautiful things that we can do for each other.
You know, Royce, you brought up my intensity. Absolutely, that's true, and that rubs some people the wrong way. I could even get very vitriolic and display a lot of what I call sacred anger. But it's a very masculine, dynamic of energy that can be displayed. And I just want to say, that comes from my pulling that curtain back and getting a peek on the other side at the absolute sick, psychopathic dynamic that is really running this world. And I only got a very small, tiny peek at it, and that was enough. Right. That was more than enough. And that drove me. I mean, that put me into overdrive, and I went into an almost obsessive level of study of our reality. And it really drove me from the total dark side, coming from religion, realizing that was a path of, putting consciousness in a box and keeping people ignorant, right? And then going totally into the dark side of the occult, then realizing that was the dynamic to say, oh yeah, if you don't like religion, we have this for you. That's the other dialectic that you can get pushed toward. That's the other false path, right? But what happened after I got the glimpse there to say, whoa, that's definitely not the direction either, and these are two opposing dialectics to keep people away from the truth, then I hit that place where I started to look at the positive aspects of the true world of occultism, the teachings that these sorcerers of the occult, if you will, the dark aspects of the occult, were really trying to keep hidden from people. They were saying, no, we want to know how this function of the universal law works, but we want to keep everybody else completely ignorant of it and say, oh, don't look at that. All the occult is evil. You don't want to ever study that. You don't want to ever look at that dynamic. That's how they keep people enslaved, through their ignorance of those dynamics. When I started to realize that this is what the dark occult was doing, that pushed me into a deep, intensive, almost obsessed study of the positive aspects of occultism, the light occult, if you will, which led me to the real workings of natural law, the laws of nature, how the human psyche works, how the mind can be manipulated, and led me to understand all of their mind control dynamics and their methods of manipulation. And then that leads to a formulation of how do we work our minds out of this. And that's what What on Earth is Happening, was as a whole movement, as a whole, course, if you will. It's a course on how to deprogram the mind from all of the negative and deceptive influences that these dark occult social engineers have programmed into the masses of humanity. And that's what my work has been all these years, to help deprogram people. So, it is very intense. It is a long process. You have to take the time to go through it. That's why I always recommend people go through my podcast. All the bulk of the work is in there. Of course, watch the seminars and videos. That's very important as well. But if you go through the progression in the podcast, that really shows you, how all of it works. And it gives you also ancillary research material along the way.
That makes sense. And if people want to get an idea of the amount of research that you've amassed, the person that got me in touch with who you were and turned me on to your teachings was someone who lived in Philadelphia, Anastasia, who we know, and she had ordered an A.R.K from you, and I started looking into the A.R.K. Now you have the A.R.K 2.0. Can you briefly explain what the A.R.K actually is?
Yeah, a friend of mine who was actually a Freemason at the Grand Lodge of Pennsylvania was at my house one day, and he was, seeing how much data I had amassed over the years. I had a whole bunch of archived DVDs and things like that laying around and in big bags, like DVD bags. And he's like, "Oh my God, man, you've downloaded so much stuff over the years." I'm like, "Oh, I've been doing this for at least 10 years or more." And he's like, he's like, "I just picked up a terabyte hard drive." This is when terabyte hard drives are like $700-800.
Right.
He's like, "I just picked up a terabyte hard drive." He's like, haven't put anything on it yet." He's like, "Would you fill it up with some of the best stuff that you've downloaded and researched over the years?" And I'm like, "Well, that'll be a huge project, but yeah, if you leave the drive with me for a couple months, I'll do it." Right. So, I'm sitting there going through bag after bag of DVDs. I had 10 DVD bags full of 200 DVDs in each bag. I'm putting them into the DVD player one at a time, looking, is this something I think should go on the drive? Is this some of the best stuff on this disc, that I've downloaded? And I just filled the drive, 1 terabyte of data. It took me 2.5, 3 months of going through discs in my spare time, filled it up finally for him, gave him the disc back. And, I started thinking wow, that was a massive project. I'm like, I'm going to save up, buy a terabyte drive myself, ask him to give me that drive back for a day, copy it. And then I'm going to start making that available, because that was an incredible project, an idea that he kind of came up with. And I'm like, I'm just going to start copying it for people. And, that became the A.R.K offer. I called it the Amazing Repository of Knowledge, A.R.K. And, I started making that available for people, because it is like a Noah's Ark of sorts, except it's a Noah's Ark of digitally archived information.
Screen share here.
Sure.
That way people can see the website too, which I'll have linked down below. But
yeah, absolutely.
I thought that was awesome, man. The Amazing Repository of Knowledge, the A.R.K. And
this is A.R.K 2.0. I just upgraded it to a 2 terabyte drive, putting some more modern information on it, in addition to some of the older stuff that I gathered. And if you scroll up a bit, it has, 26,000 audio files on it. There's about 26,000 audio files in the form of
there's 26,000 audio files.
Yeah, lectures
500 books.
Yep, audio books.
3,400 videos.
Yep. So it's an unbelievably huge store of data. Okay, and it will take a lifetime to go through it all. But that will enlighten you. That will wake anyone up if they start going through that drive and researching the data on it.
Because I still need to get a copy.
It has the right books on there. It has the right videos on there that you will learn about exactly what is and has been going on in our world. And there are esoteric books on occult knowledge on there that you won't find anywhere else, that I've been downloading since I've been on the internet since like 1992. Okay.
Wow.
And it's been, it's been a total progression of finding that information and archiving it. I'll guarantee you probably about at least 30% of that is no longer available. You will not be able to find a lot of the stuff that is on that drive anymore because of internet censorship.
I believe it, dude. I do. And that's why I wanted to make mention of it, because I think it's important that people know that this knowledge is available. I guess one of the last things I wanted to ask you, and I don't know how much you want to discuss about it or anything at all, but I know that you're working on a project. Do you want to talk about anything about it?
Yeah, absolutely. Sure.
Early?
No, it's not too early because we're still in the planning stages, but we're probably on track to launch late next month. So, a little over a month, we're going to be launching what is going to be called the One Great Work Network. This is something that I've conceived over the last few years, but didn't really have the resources or the help to get up off the ground and get launched. Now that I do have some of those resources and help, we're going to probably launch this next month, late next month. I'm not going to give an exact date. It could slip into early 2021, but technologically, it does look like it's on track to launch in late December of 2020. It's called the One Great Work Network, and it's going to be an amalgamation, a collective of we're going to probably launch at about 40 or more content creators from all over the world who are some of the best content creators when it comes to teaching natural law, freedom, and morality. That's what the whole network is going to focus on. The tagline of the network is One Great Work Network, ending slavery, one mind at a time. Okay, so the whole thing is going to focus on true freedom, anarchy, natural law, true morality, true objective morality. These are going to be the themes of the teachers on the network. We have about 40 content creators on board, including you, Rice. You're going to be one of the content creators.
I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I mean, it's going to be a who's who of names in this whole field of endeavor and teaching. And we're going to have not only blog pages for every content creator, so they're going to be able to upload their own content, their own videos, their own articles, their own audio, whatever they want, okay? We're going to have like 40 blog pages on the site with each content creator having their own section, okay? In addition to that, we're going to have a 24/7 streaming player on the main page of the site, and that is going to basically, this is the coming soon page where, it's going to be launched at onegreatworknetwork.com. It's only a coming soon page right now. Yep. We're working on it behind the scenes. We're going to get this site launched probably in late December. So we'll have more information soon. We're going to launch with probably, I'm going to say 40 content creators, which is way beyond my expectations. I was planning on launching the site with about 10 people. We had such an overwhelming response of people that wanted to be a part of the network that about 40 people have responded and are going to probably be on it at launch, approximately.
Yeah, when I heard about it, I want to be a part. Let me be a part, because just some of the other people that are a part of it as well. I mean, some people who I look up to has done a lot of great work, not looking up for an ego reason, but looking up because they have taken right action that I think that others need to take as well. Derek Bros, Max Egan, had an awesome conversation with Max last week. So, and I'm looking forward to many more with him and collaborating with other people on the network as well. So I meant to ask you before we started doing this conversation if it was cool to bring it up. That's why I asked you the way.
No problem. I'm starting to softly introduce it because we want to make sure everything is technologically on track. But we seem to be technologically on track to launch next month. So people will be hearing a lot more about it very soon.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to it. And I'll keep everybody up to date, and we'll definitely have to do, like I said, I want this to be, the first of many conversations. So hopefully we can do something here in a few weeks or so. And then if it gets really crazy busy on your end, maybe we can just do it right before the launch of the network. But definitely keep me in the loop with what's going on. And really, I do appreciate your time, and I appreciate
absolutely.
Is there any
Absolutely.
final
Thanks for
thoughts?
inviting me. Great questions in the interview too. Also, thank you.
Thank you, man. Did you have any final thoughts or anything you want to leave people with before we do wrap
No,
up?
just check out, my main website where all my information is archived at whatonearthishappening.com. And again, I always recommend go through the podcast section in order, starting at number 1 at your own pace. And that is how a new worldview, a tapestry of information will open up in your mindset. If you go through that podcast section in order, just start with number 1 and work your way forward. And there's a lot of, again, ancillary research information that I give in some of the links as you go through that through those audio podcasts, and then they eventually transition over into the video podcast series as you approach near podcast 200.
200. What number are you
I
up
think
to right
196 episodes of audio, and then starting with 197, it transitioned to a video podcast, and I went up through 236. I'm on a hiatus right now. I'm probably going to resume probably in mid 2021. I'm focusing all my effort right now on the completion of my premiere documentary called Mark Passio and the Science of Natural Law, which is on schedule to launch in early 2021, and of course getting the One Great Work Network up off the ground as well. So once those things are completed, then I'm going to go back to my podcast with What on Earth is Happening probably in mid 2021 sometime.
Awesome. Well, if you can bear with me 1 minute, I'm going to do a wrap up here and I'll stop
Sure.
recording. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to have links down below for everything that we talked about on today's episode. I do appreciate you tuning in. If this is your first time ever watching any of my videos, I do encourage you to explore my channel. Make sure you subscribe, smash that like button, hit the notification bell so you can stay up to date with my videos as they come out. And as always, I encourage you to be the change by practicing change.